artist, do you remember what we did last time? We created the sky for our winter cityscape. Today, we get to create the city. So in this activity, if you're at home, I want you to take a look at all the different types of details you can add to your buildings in your city. At school, we will do the same thing, and we're going to create our cityscape, cut it out, add some shadows, and glue it to our sky paper from last week. All right, get your supplies and let's get started. I have what I need to finish this picture. I've got my papers from last time. Remember, you only have to make one of these. I've got another paper that is as wide. It's not as tall as the paper I used last week, but it is as wide. I have some crayons, I have scissors, and I even have some glue. And of course, I've got lots of good ideas for my cityscape. So the first thing we're going to do today is create the buildings for our cityscape. The more details that you end up adding in here, the cooler it's going to look in the end. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I am going to create some rectangles for my buildings, just some very basic ones. And you want them to be all a little bit different in size. So you might want one that's really tall, and then one that's shorter. Maybe it's wider. Maybe you want one that's really thin. Thin and tall. Variety is the name of the game here. Okay? So once you've created the rectangles, the next thing to do is decide what type of roof that you would like it to have. You can do things like a triangle roof. You can maybe even do a trapezoid roof. You could do, I'm going to have to make this one really short, just part of a triangle. Maybe a dome. I can only fit part of it here, so because I only have half of my building on. A dome is a curved roof. Once you have the roofs done, maybe you just want to have some that are flat too. Once you have the roofs done, think about what kind of doors. You could have double doors, which just means there's two doors right next to each other. You could have a door with a curve on top. Maybe there's like a little window. You could have really fancy doors that are curved all the way. This is a big door. That is up to you, how you make your doors. Mustn't forget the door handle. Okay, and then you can start adding things like windows. Now you could do rectangles or squares. Not all windows are rectangles or squares though. Some could, maybe there's one up here that's round or a different shape. Maybe they're long, thin windows. Maybe there's lots of windows. Maybe there's window panes. I'm going to start adding some texture to my picture. Just some of these extra tiny details make it seem a little more interesting. Maybe there's some bricks or other materials that your building is made from. Ooh, this one doesn't have a window. I need to add a window over here. This is going to be kind of a long window going this way. There's a box inside a box. You can add texture to the roof as well. Maybe there's shingles on the roof. So your imagination, take a look at some of those ideas on the idea sheet. Of course, you can make up your own as well. You don't have to copy any of those ideas or any of these ideas. They're just a couple ideas for you to look at. And I think the more details that you add to your picture, maybe there's a chimney up here on this roof. I need another window here. So once you have, maybe there's like a pointy top like on the Capitol building. Maybe I'll have some designs on there. Okay, so once you have your city created, the next step would be to cut it out. And when you're cutting out your city, you're going to cut right along the very top edge of your city. Be careful when you do this part that you don't cut off more than you want. Go slow. Remember, this hand over here is going to turn the paper. And always keep the blades pointing away from you. You do not want to be unsafe with your scissors. And then what you're going to do, once you have that, you're going to put the lightest end of your sky at the bottom and the darkest at the top. You're going to glue this onto the bottom of your paper. So be careful not to tear. Now, if you're doing this on painted paper, gluing to the painted paper, sometimes you have to add some more glue if it's not sticking. What I like to do also is turn it over and just really give the paper a good massage to make sure the two papers are making really good contact, and then check it to see if I need to add more. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use our crayon and find kind of a matching color. If you're not sure if it's matching, check it on a scrap piece of paper. And what we're going to do is choose one side of our buildings to make a shadow. And so I've decided I'm going to put the shadow on the left side. So I start off with a dark line on the left side of my building. I might need to add a little more glue on this part. And then I'm going to do kind of a light shadow going this way, this little bit too. I'm going to do this on each of my buildings, and if it's a really small building like this one and you end up coloring the whole thing, that's okay. All right, so now I have the shadows completed on my picture. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create some snow in my sky. I'm going to use my white crayon, and I can draw right on top. So what I do is I make X and then put a line through it. And the more that you put on here, of course, the snowier your sky is going to look. They almost look like little stars too. So if you want to think that they're stars, that's okay. Now, if you're doing this with a crayon, you will do the same thing. You can also, if you don't have a marker to draw with, you can draw with a black crayon or a colored pencil. Whatever you happen to have at your house is fine. So if you're doing one with the crayon, you'd really just do it the same way. You make your buildings, you cut it out, you glue it on, and then if you want to add snowflakes, what I would do is I'd use some of the leftover scraps from when you were cutting out. You can either tear little pieces to make your snowflake, little pieces for the sky, and of course sometimes I just tear out a bunch, little tiny bits. You could cut out some little star shapes too if you're feeling really crafty. But once you get enough, just take some of those little pieces and start gluing them on. It'll give the same effect as snow in your sky. And of course, the more of these that you do, the snowier your picture is going to be. So I hope you've had fun. making this with me today. Whichever way you chose to make your sky, I think it's going to turn out awesome. Remember a couple things when you're making your buildings, that the buildings all need to be touching, squished together, and that lots of details will be very important. And don't forget the shadow. That really adds kind of some depth to your picture. So remember to take a picture of these, put them on Seesaw and Artsonia. This will go in the winter landscape folder. All right, have a great day. Until next time, bye.